Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive. And today we're going to be taking a look at a collection of short stories by O. Henry.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, and I'm really excited for this one. I think his work is so incredibly clever. He's most known for writing about New York and then Texas and Oklahoma. And a lot of his stories kind of center on the theme of money or love.
Hmm. Interesting.
Yeah, and his stories always have these surprise endings, so you'll never know how it's going to end. And the source material that we're going to be looking at for this is a collection of O. Henry short stories from Penguin Readers Level 1.
Okay, cool.
So that should give you an indication of kind of the language and the storytelling, very accessible, I think.
Yeah.
So let's jump right in. Um, one of his most famous stories is The Gift of the Magi. Have you heard of that one?
Yeah.
Okay, so it takes place in like a small New York apartment in 1905. And we've got this young couple, Della and Jim, and they're very poor.
Right.
They only have like $1.87 for Christmas,
Wow.
but they each have like one possession that they really prize. And so for Jim, it's his gold watch. And for Della, it's her beautiful long hair. So as the story unfolds, Della is really struggling with like how she can get Jim a good Christmas present with so little money.
Yeah.
And she decides to sell her hair.
Oh, wow.
So she gets it cut off, she sells it, and she uses the money to buy a platinum chain for Jim's watch.
Okay.
But then we find out that Jim has actually also sold his watch to buy Della a set of combs for her hair.
Oh, the irony.
Right, so now they both have these gifts that they can't even use.
Wow, yeah. That's a tough situation.
But O. Henry really highlights, I think, that even though these gifts are now kind of useless, they actually represent like this really deep love and sacrifice that they have for each other.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of interesting because it does make you think about the true meaning of gift giving.
Yeah.
You know, it's not always about the material item itself, right?
Oh.
It's about the thought behind it and the sacrifice.
And the title of the story, The Gift of the Magi, is also really significant because the Magi were the wise men who brought gifts to baby Jesus.
Right, yeah.
So it's kind of connecting back to this idea of like selfless giving and what makes a gift truly valuable.
That's a good point.
What do you think constitutes a valuable gift? Is it material or is it something deeper?
I think it definitely depends on the situation, but I agree with you. I think ultimately it's the thought and the effort behind it that really matters.
Okay, so let's move on to another story called The Art Game.
Yeah.
So in this story, we got these two friends, Andy and Jeff,
Okay.
and they decide to move to Pittsburgh and try to sell things to millionaires.
Millionaires. Interesting. Why would they want to do that?
Well, that's the funny part. They're not actually trying to make money. It's more like a game for them. Like they're trying to see if they can convince these really rich people to buy things that they don't even need.
Huh. Okay. I mean, I guess that is kind of a game in a way.
So they meet this millionaire named Mr. Scudder. And Mr. Scudder wants to become a gentleman. But he thinks the way to do that is by collecting all these books and art and like this very specific item, a gold horse from Egypt.
A gold horse from Egypt.
Yeah, it's very particular. So Jeff actually stumbles upon a pawn shop, and there's this gold horse just sitting there. And it turns out that it's the exact one that Mr. Scudder wants.
Oh, wow. What are the odds?
So he buys it for like $2 and then turns around and sells it to Mr. Scudder for $2,000.
Wow. He made a pretty good profit.
Yeah, but then here's the twist. He uses that money to buy the horse back from Mr. Scudder.
What? Why would he do that?
I think it's because he realizes that the horse has a lot of sentimental value to the original owner. And it's kind of like he's saying that some things are just more important than money.
That's interesting. It's like he's challenging the idea that everything has a price tag.
Exactly. So again, it makes you think about like how we assign value to things.
Yeah, for sure.
For Mr. Scudder, the gold horse was just a status symbol. But for Jeff and the original owner, it was something much more meaningful.
Right. So it's not just about money. It's about what the object represents to each person.
Yeah. Well, Henry is always playing with these different ideas of value and what really matters in life.
It sounds like he's got a lot to say about human nature and how we interact with the world around us.
Absolutely. So now are you ready to head to Texas?
Texas.
All right, let's do it.
Okay, so our next story is called The Troubadour, and it takes us to the dusty plains of the Lone Star State.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
So we meet Sam Galloway. He's this traveling troubadour who goes from ranch to ranch, entertaining people with his music and his stories.
That sounds like a pretty good gig.
Yeah, he seems to be enjoying life. But then we also meet Mr. Ellison, who's a rancher, and he's having some serious financial problems.
Oh, no.
And there's this really intimidating character called King James, who's trying to force Mr. Ellison to move his sheep off of his land.
That doesn't sound good. So what happens?
Well, it turns out that Sam Galloway is actually the long-lost brother of a woman named Caroline Reeves.
Okay.
And Caroline Reeves was like this really generous benefactor to Mr. Ellison in the past.
So it's all connected.
Yeah, and Sam has inherited all of Caroline's wealth. So he uses his money to solve Mr. Ellison's problems. Wow, talk about a lucky break for Mr. Ellison.
Right. But it's more than just luck. I think O. Henry is trying to show how these unexpected connections and past acts of kindness can have a huge impact on people's lives.
That's a good point. It's like a ripple effect.
Yeah, it makes you wonder about all the hidden relationships and how they might be shaping our lives in ways that we don't even realize.
Definitely makes you think.
So now I want to jump into a couple of other stories, kind of more briefly, just to give you a taste of what else O. Henry has to offer.
Okay, cool.
So there's a story called Money Talks.
Okay.
And this one is about this wealthy man who thinks that money can solve any problem. But his son falls in love with a woman who values time more than money.
Interesting conflict.
Yeah, and it really explores the limits of what money can buy.
Yeah. I mean, money can't buy you love, right?
Right. And then there's another story called Soapy's Winter Home.
Okay.
And this is a really interesting one about a homeless man who tries to get arrested so he can spend the winter in jail.
What? That's a pretty desperate plan.
Yeah, but it's really funny and also kind of sad at the same time because he goes to all these lengths to try to get arrested, but no one seems to notice him.
Oh, wow. That's tough.
And it really makes you think about, like, how society treats people who are struggling and how easy it is to just overlook them.
Yeah, that's a powerful message.
So we've only scratched the surface here. But I think you can already see how O. Henry's stories are full of these surprising twists and these really heartwarming moments.
Yeah, he definitely has a unique style.
And he really gets you thinking about human nature and the challenges that people face, whether it's poverty or love or ambition.
Absolutely. So what do you think, what are some of the things that resonate with you most about O. Henry's work?
It's a good question. I think one of the things I love is just the way he plays with language. He's got this really witty and playful tone, but he can also be really poignant and insightful.
Yeah, I agree. His writing is really engaging.
And I also think he has this really amazing ability to create these really memorable characters in just a few pages.
That's true. You feel like you really get to know them even in these short stories.
Yeah, he packs a lot into a small space.
Definitely. So even though these stories were written over 100 years ago,
Yeah.
they still feel relevant today, right?
Oh, absolutely. The themes that he explores are timeless, and his writing style is just so engaging that it really draws you in.
So what do you think is the biggest takeaway for our listeners today?
I think O. Henry really challenges us to look beyond the surface and to see the world through different lenses. He makes us question our assumptions about value and success and what truly matters in life.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And he also reminds us that even in the face of adversity, there's always hope and there's always beauty to be found if we're willing to look for it.
Beautifully said. I think that's a perfect note to end on.
Yeah, so to our listeners, if you haven't already, I highly encourage you to seek out some of O. Henry's stories. You won't be disappointed.
Agreed. It's a journey worth taking. Well, this one, the Troubadour, definitely takes us somewhere totally different.
Yeah.
Out of the city this time.
Yeah, we're in Texas now.
All right.
So we meet Sam Galloway. He's a traveling musician going from ranch to ranch, playing music, telling stories.
Okay.
He seems like a pretty happy guy.
Yeah.
But then we also meet Mr. Ellison, who's this rancher that's having some money problems.
Uh-oh.
And there's this other character, King James, who's like this big, intimidating guy. And he's putting pressure on Mr. Ellison to move his sheep off his land.
Okay. So what does this have to do with the musician?
Well, it turns out that Sam Galloway is actually the brother of a woman named Caroline Reeves.
Okay.
And she had helped Mr. Ellison a long time ago. She was like a benefactor to him.
Oh, so there's a connection.
Yeah, and Sam has inherited all of her money. So he uses his money to help Mr. Ellison out.
Wow, what a coincidence.
Yeah, but it's more than just coincidence. I think, Henry's trying to show how these random connections can really impact people's lives.
I see.
It's like those little acts of kindness that can have these ripple effects.
Makes you think.
Yeah, it does. So how about we jump back to New York now?
Back to New York. Okay.
This time we've got a story called Money Talks.
All right.
And it's about this rich guy named Mr. Rockwell who thinks money can solve any problem.
Oh, boy.
But his son, Richard, falls in love with this woman, Ellen. And Ellen's not really impressed by money.
So she's not a gold digger.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
She values time and experiences more than material things.
That's refreshing.
Yeah, Mr. Rockwell just doesn't get it, though. He keeps trying to use his money to impress her, and it just backfires every time.
Classic.
There's this one scene where he tries to create a traffic jam.
A traffic jam? Why?
He thinks it'll give Richard more time to talk to Ellen.
That's hilarious.
But of course, Ellen's not interested in any of that.
Nope.
She just wants to spend time with Richard and talk to him.
So money can't buy everything.
Exactly. And that's the whole point of the story. You can't buy love or happiness with money.
So true.
So are you ready for one more story?
Yeah, hit me.
All right. This one's called Soapy's Winter Home. And it's about this homeless guy, Soapy. And winter's coming. And he decides he wants to go to jail.
To jail? Why?
Because he figures it's warm in there. They'll give him food and a place to sleep.
Oh, I see. He's trying to survive the winter.
Yeah, he's desperate.
Yeah.
So he keeps trying to get arrested.
Like how?
Well, he tries all these things, like breaking windows and acting disorderly. But the funny thing is, no one even notices him.
So no one cares enough to arrest him.
Yeah, it's like he's invisible.
That's sad.
It is. It shows how easily people can be overlooked, especially when they're struggling.
Yeah, it makes you think.
There's this one part where he tries to steal an umbrella from a store,
Okay.
but the cop just thinks he's returning it,
Oh.
and he sends him on his way.
That's just bad luck.
Yeah, but then something interesting happens. As Soapy's walking around, he starts to notice the little things,
Like what?
like the sunshine and the sound of kids playing.
Okay.
It's like he's rediscovering beauty in the world, even though he's in this really tough situation.
So he's finding hope?
Yeah. But then, of course, O. Henry throws in another twist. Sophie's standing there listening to some music,
Okay.
and a cop comes up and arrests him for loitering.
Oh no, seriously.
Yeah, so he ends up in jail anyway.
That's rough.
But it's also kind of ironic, right?
Yeah, totally.
He goes through all this trouble trying to get arrested, and then it happens when he's least expecting it.
So what do you think O. Henry is trying to say with this story?
That's a good question. I think he's definitely making a statement about poverty and how society treats people who are struggling.
Yeah, I can see that.
But I also think it's about finding hope and beauty, even in the darkest of places.
Right, and how life can be unpredictable.
Absolutely.
You know, it's amazing to me how these stories were written so long ago,
Yeah.
but they still feel so relevant today.
Yeah, they really do.
Like these themes of love and sacrifice and, just trying to get by in life.
Yeah, ambition and just basic survival.
Right.
The things that we all deal with, no matter what time period we're living in.
It's like he had this ability to see right through to the core of the human experience.
Yeah, and he could do it with such wit and humor, too.
Yeah, he had such a clever way with words.
Yeah, like he could take something really ordinary and make it seem extraordinary.
Yeah, he makes you look at things in a new way.
Yeah, he makes you think about things you might not have thought about before.
And he wasn't afraid to address some of the darker sides of life, too.
Right, like poverty and inequality.
Yeah, but he always did it with a touch of grace and humor.
Yeah, you never feel like he's being preachy or anything.
Right, it's more like he's inviting you to think about these issues along with him.
Yeah, and he never gives you all the answers.
No, he leaves you with questions.
Yeah, which I think is part of what makes his story so powerful.
Definitely makes you keep thinking about them long after you finish reading.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into O. Henry's world,
Yeah.
what do you think are some of the key takeaways for our listeners?
Well, I think one of the biggest things is just the power of storytelling.
Yeah.
Like, O. Henry shows us that even a short story can have a huge impact.
It can make you laugh, make you cry, make you think.
Exactly.
And I think another important takeaway is that even in the midst of hardship,
Yeah.
there's always hope.
Always.
Like even Soapy, the homeless man, he was struggling to survive,
Right.
but he still found moments of beauty in his life.
And those moments kept him going.
Yeah, they gave him something to hold on to.
It's like a reminder that even when things are tough, there's always something to be grateful for.
Exactly. And I think O. Henry's stories really highlight that.
So what would you say to someone who's never read O. Henry before?
I would say you're in for a treat.
Yeah.
His stories are witty, charming, and full of surprises.
And they'll definitely stay with you long after you've finished reading them.
Absolutely. So we hope you've enjoyed this deep dive into the world of O. Henry.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
And we'll see you next time for another literary adventure.